I think it's appropriate that I do this recording on a Monday. This idea of what's the meaning of work. I think we all struggle with this in the reality of why do we have to go to work, make money, do all of these things. Hey, it's Scott Beebe with Business on Purpose, where we want to help liberate you from the chaos of working in your business so you can make time for what matters most. It's one of the biggest things we get when we travel around. We're speaking a lot more around the country right now. And so we'll have the opportunity to be able to ask people, hey, what are you seeing? What are you thinking? And one of the biggest things that we hear back is that nobody wants to work anymore. And the problem is that phrase has been said now for over a year. It's a headline all the way back to 1894 that we have found declaring that nobody wants to work anymore. But when we do that, what we don't realize we're doing subconsciously is we're putting work and positioning work in a place where it's cursed. It's a means to an end, some sort of lifeless 9 to 5, just trying to make a living, right? Hallucinating that it's 5 o'clock somewhere, taking this job and shove it, or just another manic Monday. You've heard those songs, right? Work must be deeper than that. It's got to be more powerful than that. Work is an opportunity. Grover Cleveland said it this way: honor lies in honest toil. Or Epicurus way back said the greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. Or how about the proverb? Proverb 12:11, a hard worker has plenty of food, but a person who chases fantasies has no sense whatsoever. So let's, if only for a moment, stack hands and agree that work is a gift and work is good. See, that's a place I want us to be, because a world without work is a world without creativity. It's a world without creating. It's a world without interaction or opportunity or cross-pollination. You know, we say things like nobody wants to work anymore, when in reality, it may just be that nobody wants to work for you because you're grumpy, confusing, and have a lack of clarity. Well, Scott, but nobody wants to sweat anymore, do hard things, work in their hands anymore. Well, we can continue to buy that garbage of thought, or we can start to shift our mindset and begin believing something different. And therefore, we live out our belief by creating a culture where people wish to do hard things. I've got kids that grew up in my house. They're doing hard things right now. I know there's a desire to do that. Now, within this culture, there will always be a mountain to climb in building a culture of intentionality within our businesses or within our homes. Well, Scott, you don't understand. My industry is hard. You know, I've got to deal with job costing and billing, subcontractors, change orders, material delays, supply chain, etc. It's not like any other industry. Well, let's be careful. I want to welcome you to the world of business. It's not just that your industry's hard. Owning an ice cream shop is hard. Owning a medical clinic is hard. Owning a multi-investor funded tech startup is hard. Construction is hard. It's all hard, but it can also be good. So let's stop pretending that our circumstance is unique. Business is hard, therefore business can be good. So what is the mountain of our time? Shifting our mindset about what work is and what work is not is something that we would do well to do. See, work is not a novel concept. I do a reasonable amount of reading, and I find some of the quirkier stories more interesting for me. I'm currently reading John Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie, and it's super fascinating. Some of my favorite sections of historical literature are those that tend to meander into some pretty peculiar fields. The idea of work and industry is far older than we think it is. It's not just from the 1800s or the 1700s. Go back to 1400 BC. There's reference to 3 different people that I find very interesting. It goes something like this. You can actually look this up historically in Genesis. Ada gave birth to Jabal, the ancestor of all who lived in tents and herded cattle. Yeah, that's right. Jabal was a cowboy. His brother's name was Jubal, the ancestor of all who played the lyre and the flute. That's right. Jubal was a musician. And then Zillah gave birth to Tubal-Cain, who worked at the forge making bronze and iron tools. So you had a subcontracting tradesman, a cowboy, and a musician over 3,000 years ago. Now, around the same time, we meet 2 other people, Bezalel and Aholiab. It says that Bezalel was gifted with the skill and ability and know-how for making all sorts of things, to design and to work in gold, silver, and bronze, to carve stones and to set them, to carve wood, working in every kind of skilled craft. And he's also made him a teacher, along with Aholiab. So these weren't just tradesmen, they were also teachers in the trades. Work is an age-old stage. And so we have this skill, we have this ability, we have this know-how for making certain things. And without the skill, there is no business. Without the value, there is no business. And without the others, there is no value. The late professor of philosophy at the University of Southern California, Dr. Dallas Willard, one of my favorite authors, he studied this idea of work deeply and came to some insightful convictions. Willard defines work as the production of value by the actions of our thoughts and bodily efforts upon available resources. This was captured in the book that was written after his death, actually, in a collection of his talks called Called to Business. He goes on to extol work by suggesting that work is simply human creativity. It's a special type of causation through which goodness and blessing can be promoted in our surroundings. So what's the mountain of our time? What's stopping us from leaning into solving problems with creativity by which good and blessing can jump from you to the person you serve? I think that mountain is chaos. I think chaos is harassing us. That exasperation of chaos that steals our attention from purpose and places, it's squarely on the back of entitlement and irritation. So we are now an entitled generation, an irritable generation, because chaos is this mountain that so far we've been relatively unwilling to climb. So what's the point of business? Dallas Willard steers a weary worker to be revived with the truth that the basic aim of business is to make provision for the needs of people in an area served. That's it. In line with that conviction, Willard also says that everyone has three parts that make up the productivity of their life. First is your job. That's what you're paid to do. Second is your ministry or your service. It's how you care for others. Be careful not to hear this as a religious usage of the term ministry. There's plenty of governments around the world that are the ministry of defense or the ministry of social sector or whatever. It's always in the uniqueness of how you care for other people. That's what ministry means, or service. The third element or layer Willard talks about is your work. And he describes it this way: your work is the total amount of good that you will accomplish in your lifetime. The circle surrounding your work, your service or your ministry or your job, is the circle of your life. It encompasses those three things. So what has stolen the joy from our work is that the smallest thing, our job, has actually become the thing that defines our entire identity. For me, my life is made up of this way. My work is to be a light and create space to entice the nations into this community of God, which is marked by calmness and hope, although it's hard. Now, again, that's for me. It's not for you, but it's for me. My service or my ministry, the way I care for others, is to liberate owners and key leaders from chaos, what I'm trying to do right now. The third layer is my job. That's as an owner and as a business coach at Business on Purpose. I don't want my headstone to reflect my job. He was an owner and a business coach at BOP. I prefer my headstone give reflection on my work or my service to others. He welcomed the nations into God's community. That's what I would prefer it say. Do we know you by your job title? Or do we know you by the specific way you care for other people, your service, your ministry? Or do we know you by the total fruit of your job, plus how you care for people, plus the relationships you have, plus how you parent? That's your total work. Our work is an opportunity and stage for us to care for other people and a trampoline for how we love our spouses, parent our children, and interact in our local communities. So what do we do with this? First, I think we need to be aware that we're human beings. You're not a job title. You're not a family title. You're not a customer to be exploited. You're Andrew. You're Molly. You're Steve. You're Muhammad. You're Connor. You're Ken. Be aware that it's good to have a job and to serve others uniquely, both at that job and outside of that job, and to have an intentional mission or service to the areas of your life, because life and business necessarily intersect. The second thing we need to be aware of is we need to start asking ourselves, how do I insist and go hard after such excellence in my job so that, and the so that is important, it becomes a legitimate gift and service to other team members, clients, subcontractors, vendors, and community members. In other words, how do I leverage my job to serve others, and in that service I create this full scale of work? That excellence will begin to mound up to a mountain of service that yields an excess of provision that other people benefit from, and there you will find meaning in your work. So what can you do now? I think it's good to ask yourself a question, or maybe even discuss this question. What aspects of your job allow you to care for others, service, and result in good work to others? That's your total work. And so when you start layering these things on, now we can tie our job, that thing we get paid to do, with our service to others, with our total work and the value that we bring to other people. Do you need to be in a community that allows you to see this work worth doing, I want you to go to mybusinessonpurpose.com/contact. Please reach out. Let us hop on a call with you and show you how you can tie your job to your service to others, which then ties to your ministry, which is the whole of your life. Instead of just seeing life as your job as the identity of who you are. We've got to go beyond that. We've got to realize that we need to create a culture where people wish to do hard things. That's the kind of culture that we want to be a part of. And so when we create a culture where people wish to do hard things, we stop bemoaning and saying that nobody wants to work anymore.